So, welcome to Tallulah Rendall.
Thanks, Somesh.
Get my thing here. Could you please tell us a little bit about yourself and as a musician?
Hold on, let me just get you a little bit about myself.
Yeah.
So,
Your music.
I am a songstress, a singer-songwriter, and a ceremonialist, and I have released 4 albums to date, all of which have been crowdfunded and co-produced by me and other producers. And I am also a sound therapist and qigong teacher and creative facilitator. And I'm currently in the process of releasing my 5th album as part of this One Song Away course. And I'm currently recording my 6th. Anyway, and I'm currently recording whatever one is after that. I think it's the 7th. I'm not quite sure. I think I'm recording my 7th. Yeah. Yeah, at the moment. Yeah.
Wow, your 7th album, is that right?
I'm recording my 7th album. I'm in the process of releasing my 6th at the moment, which is an album of mantras.
Fantastic. And you've just released your first track in that process, huh?
Yeah, so I've released the Heart Sutra. And I was thinking about this yesterday when we were talking. I actually hadn't planned to release this album like properly. It's been on my website for about a year. And then during lockdown, I started doing this daily Instagram session. So every morning online, I was doing a sound meditation and chanting the Heart Sutra and doing some qigong and ecstatic dance. And over 3 months, this community kind of grew up. And then when we started the One Song Away course, and you were like, do you have anything to release? I was like, oh, maybe I should just release the Heart Sutra, as that's what I've been doing every day for the last 3 months. And I haven't released this album. So it kind of just happened that way. It wasn't really planned. So now I'm in this process.
Wow, fantastic.
Yeah.
So before the One Song Away sort of program, what was your process of successful music release? What process did you go through?
I don't know if it was successful music release, but
Well, I mean, it had some success.
It had some success. I mean, basically, I should just turn my volume off. So my main success has come from the fact that I've crowdfunded all my albums, and then I have released them all as books. And actually, I do have one. Luckily, I had to, as I just told you, had to get into my van because there's people next door. So it's lucky I've got this here. So all my albums are released as books, and they come with a CD and a download code. And then there's kind of artwork and lyrics and the stories behind the songs. And that has been my process of releasing all my albums over the last 15, 20 years, however long it's been. And then I'll sell these for 15 quid at a gig and people buy them. So the process, and I've done that ever since I started. And my experience of it was that people really wanted to know more about me as an artist. They wanted to connect more with the stories behind the songs and the artwork, and the kind of creative collaboration part of it just brought a lot of interest and a lot of support. And so I basically survived as an artist through touring and selling records. And my albums were also released as records, as gatefold records with download codes, and I've been doing that for years. So that was really how I successfully survived as an artist. And in regards to kind of the marketing side, as part of all my crowdfunding campaigns, I would crowdfund for a marketing budget, and then I would outsource that to different media companies, and sometimes really successfully, and sometimes I got really badly stung and lost tens of thousands of pounds by really corrupt people. So I've had like full spectrum experience on that front. But it's only actually now through this course that I'm kind of focusing more on the digital side of stuff, which is why my digital kind of online stuff is not so great, because I've survived as a touring artist, not as an online artist. So this has been quite a big shift for me.
Wow. Yeah, it's a really creative way that you've done the whole release cycle with that book. Is quite a unique sort of product.
Yeah, and it was, I mean, when I first started, the first album I made was with a producer called Marius de Vries, who at the time was like one of the top producers in the UK and the world. He'd made Romeo and Juliet. He'd done the soundtrack from Moulin Rouge. He'd just made Madonna's record, and we crowdfunded an album, and then half part of it was crowdfunded and part of it was I'd written a song for an Australian filmmaker, and so she put some money into working with Marius, and so we had this great record, but I didn't want to release it just as a CD. I wanted to do it as a book. I'd grown up in a house full of gatefold vinyl, and for me, just like a CD just felt it just didn't feel like, it just felt really plastic and kind of horrible. I wanted the kind of, I grew up on 60s and 70s records. I wanted that kind of beautiful, kind of tangible thing. So I started working with various different artists and photographers, and I put together this thing, and then I pitched it to like Wonderful Indian and 14th Floor and all the different labels. And they were just like, you're an unknown artist. This looks really expensive. No. So I was like, all right, fuck you. I'm going to do it myself. so I did it myself. So I set up a record label, and I just kind of did it. And for better, for worse, this was just before Florence the Machine came out, and all of those that kind of ilk of artists. And we kind of, the record that Marius and I made was actually sonically very similar, but I don't think the songs were as good. But there was an interesting time to be kind of launching a career, to be honest. Yeah.
Wow, great. It's beautiful package, and beautiful the artwork, and I can see the quality of the book as well. So I really get how, when you receive a book like that, and you've paid £15, it's not a huge amount of money for the book that you're getting the CD, you're getting the download. Did you actually make any money on that? Was it possible to, because the book looks like quite good quality, it's hardcover?
Yeah, I mean, that's how I've survived financially for all this time. Yeah, so I think because I did all of the design it was me and my drummer at the time, and he's actually worked on all of the 4 books that I've done. There wasn't this massive production cost. The only cost was printing the CDs and the books, and I outsourced that to Estonia. And so I think it came in at like £2.50 or £3 a unit, something like that, on the really big runs, because we did some really, really big print runs, and maybe £5 a unit on the smaller runs. So that's good. Yeah,
that's pretty good.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, to be honest, finances and budgeting has never been my strong point. So, but I've survived as an artist.
Yeah, very unique.
Somehow. Yeah.
And what were the challenges you faced when you released your music that way? What were the biggest challenges?
The biggest challenge was sort of album after album having to kind of take a deep breath and go back to crowdfunding, and each time it just felt like there was a part of my ego that was really like, oh god, I can't believe I'm doing this again, why aren't I signed, or why don't I have this, or why don't I that? And I'd kind of go through this kind of slight victim process around it every time, and then I would be like, oh, because I'm choosing it, and because it's amazing, and because there's this incredible community of support. And so I kind of go through this journey every time. But as soon as I would start the process, the actual support from those people that were really wanting to hear my music, that really propelled the momentum. But it took a lot of courage, and yeah, there was definitely kind of that part of me that's like, oh God, you're reaching out again to your community, or the people that are following you and saying, okay, I'm going to do this, and do you want to get involved? And so that part's always been a bit of a stumbling block. And then the other part was just the sheer logistical organization of producing a record, managing the design of a record, doing all the release side of it, doing all the tour management side of it, doing everything. And I've done like 360 for nearly 20 years, and there's been a few moments when I was signed to labels in Germany and Australia and had management and booking agents, but it never really stuck for very long. So just continually having to keep going and manage so many different aspects of something, and knowing that I'm going to drop the ball on something, and I always do, and that has a really detrimental impact, and that's been the most frustrating thing. So there's been times with one of my albums, it was picked up by Jules Holland, it was streamed with Radiohead, it was like we were playing every single festival, it was brilliant, but I was just to try and keep on top of all of those things and not miss an opportunity or forget to do something, and turn up and play a gig, and turn up to the right radio station, and remember to say all the right things, and be kind of talking to all the it's a lot. It totally fries my brain, which is why I totally burnt out. And I had a complete burnout in 2011, and that's when I stopped completely, and I retrained as a therapist, qigong teacher, a sound therapist, and I kind of gave up. I thought, that's it, I'm not doing it any longer because I can't sustain it at this level. But that didn't happen, and now we're three albums in since then. So yeah.
Wow. And do you when you're doing that, because you're being your own sort of label, is that the most challenging thing? Is that instead of I guess when an artist, generally in the mainstream, because your music was more on the mainstream side, generally when you're in the mainstream, you have a label, and then the label manages that whole process, and so you have all that support. But when you're doing it yourself, I guess it's a lot more challenging. Yeah,
it's a lot more challenging. And also there is, as you know, there's a game in this industry, and that if you have an agent and if you have a manager, the person that you're contacting is much more likely to pick up the phone or answer the email. And so for years I was just like, okay, I'm going to play this game. So I set up pseudonyms, and I ran a booking agency under the pseudonym of Sophia Brewer, and I booked tours all around the world for myself under that pseudonym, because that was the only way that people would respond to my emails. So it's been really, it's a lot of work. And even just like thinking about it now, I feel exhausted. It's so exhausting. Oh my God. But when you're 20 or like 18, you've got the energy to kind of juggle all those different things, I think.
Yeah. It sounds quite intense.
Yeah,
it sounds quite intense. So let's see. So what led you to look for a better way to release your music?
I decided, so when was this? This was 2018. I started working on this. So this is the Liminal, and that album felt like the first step of bringing together the two worlds of the world of the medicine singer, the sound therapist, and the more traditional songwriter. And so with this album, the sort of sonic landscape was sampling the singing bowls and the gongs and creating this sort of sonic container that has this very, very intrinsically this very nourishing, nurturing holding in it, because the nature of the instruments, and then bringing this very kind of uplifting, euphoric songs and melodies into it. And when I released it, I kind of segued my two worlds together by creating this experiential event whereby the first part of the show, rather than having a support band, I would hold a sound meditation with the gongs and the singing bowls, and everyone would be in shavasana, and we'd go into this deep meditation, and we'd have all these incredible rose essence smells, and we like took over huge venues all around England. And then we'd kind of flow out of that into an a cappella sharing of the track on this record called Holding On to Love. And then the whole journey would just like build and build and build and build and build until it was like a full piece band. And by the end, everyone's just like fully dancing and fully going for it and having it. And it was this epic experience. And that was how I launched it and toured it. And then COVID happened. So we did like 6 or 7 shows. And then it was like, that was it. That was it. So then this last year's happened, and I was just, when I came across your post for One Song Away, it really resonated with me, this idea of exploring how to release music now in this time where everything has moved so to the digital. And also, as I just need to put my thing in this kind of thing of transitioning from one musical community into another musical community, and really wanting to connect more in with the community that I'm part of now, rather than the framework that I was in before. It's a very different world. And so just that kind of drew me to this course. And the whole thing, it was kind of just more out of interest, out of curiosity. And then suddenly the way that you set it up was such a clear framework, that the way that my brain works, it's like, oh, well, I can just do that. It's like boom, 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 boom. And it's been like with this one single, totally effortless. Hasn't been like stressful at all. So that's kind of a long-winded explanation to your question.
Yeah, great.
But I hope it answers your question. Kind of puts it in context.
Yeah. So, so did the coaching program help you with that music release? How did it help you?
So let me just bring this up on my computer. So as I said, like there's, one of the big things when you've been releasing music for as long as I have, is that the landscape has changed so many times. It has changed every year. So now just having this very clear framework to be like, okay, we do this, we do this, we do this, and this, and this, and this, and this, how to kind of, so I've just followed that in a step-by-step process. And, from that, so the single came out on Friday, and it's been, you're specifically asking us to kind of focus on Spotify. So when I was looking at that this morning, so the track's been playlisted now on 4 playlists. One of those is mine. 2 of them, there's 3 from people in our course. Then Spotify is playlisted on 2. So it's, so the number of streams I've had in the last, since it's released on all of my platforms, is nearly 1,000. On my Spotify platform is nearly 1,000. So that's pretty good in the last few days. And my listenership has gone up by, it's like now on 404 people, whereas last week it was on 285. So that's doing something. And it's sold, like I've had something like, I think it's 150 sales. Again, it's pretty good, because people aren't only buying the single, they're buying my back catalogs on Bandcamp. You've got this option to buy your back. It's not hit there, you can do it, but a few people have just gone straight ahead, bought the single, and then bought the full album as well. So And then there's been the licensing thing. Someone's requested to use the Heart Suture. Like all my socials have gone up in the last 4 or 5 days.
Cool. So those are good. Those are really good results for your first release using this system. What other sort of platforms did you put some effort into?
So I mean, so that's my question, actually. It's a good question, because you were asking us specifically to focus on Spotify. So that's kind of what I've done. And then I'm also really aware that that doesn't work for everybody. And so that's been a little bit confusing as to like, so I focused on Spotify for a few days. And then I started focusing on this. I've got a link, which is here now, which has then got Amazon and Apple and Bandcamp and Spotify on.
Yeah.
And so now I've started pushing that as the more, because I feel like that's a more accessible for everybody who's not just on Spotify.
Yeah.
So I just think that that's something to kind of play with a little bit, because I do think it kind of, had I pushed that here now link right from the start, it would have been interesting to see what difference that would have made, or I don't know. But specifically, I've just been pushing Spotify and Bandcamp. So, but then, all my social media, so like Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, my website, my blog, Spotify, YouTube have been on a daily basis updated, posted with content and links.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of,
Yeah, so the idea is that you focus on one channel, but the point is that all the other channels will benefit from that focus.
Mm-hmm.
So you're just looking at like, what's the most effective way that I can focus like my efforts. And so you focus on Spotify because that is just the way people, like the most people are listening to music. And then out of that, it just gives you one thing to focus. It's not like it's the only thing, but it's like one thing to focus on. And then your YouTube, your Facebook, your Instagram will all get, some attention and be able to feed each other through that whole process.
Yeah.
So it's not like we're focusing on Spotify as the only thing, but I guess when you do the pre-save link, like that's the option that it gives you. Like so it's a Spotify release pre-save. But then you're also posting on Facebook, you're putting your videos on YouTube, and so you're getting this, you're trying to lift the whole boat with the release. And all of the different platforms will get some level of uplift through the process.
Yeah. I think the one thing that I found interesting is that, and I think I mentioned this to you, mentioned this to you the other day, was that with Facebook, my Facebook personal profile gets love and attention and lots of people comment on that, but my Facebook page is like just dead in the water. And I did do 2 ads, one on the single release and one for the main video, and it's like I did only $10 for like a 4-day thing for my 4-day promo, and for $10 I got 24 engagements, but it was shown to 500 people. And that just feels like a total rip-off to me. It just feels like, it just doesn't, that Facebook.
So how it works with advertising and especially with Facebook is that you've got to understand, like, Facebook is an ecosystem with like millions of people, all different types of people, right? So what you're like the way it works with like fan engagement, there's a fan journey that happens, and the fan journey starts with a process of awareness. So like it's that first stage where like you walk into a party and somebody sees you. Okay, that's that awareness. They're just aware that you actually exist. So that's the first like interaction, is like just that awareness campaign. And then once people, you might send out a campaign and 1,000 people become like, even see your ad. So there's that awareness, just that awareness of 1,000 people. And then out of those 1,000 people, maybe like 100 people will actually take note and take some type of action. And so they might click on your link, or watch a little bit of the video. And that's the first step of the relationship building, where they actually engage with whatever you've put out there. And in that engagement, a certain section of them will find some type of connection. Okay, so that's a further subset. So maybe out of 100 people, maybe 20 people will find like that they connect with it. And out of those 20 people, maybe like 10 of them will like the page because they've made this connection with you. And then over time, you build that relationship in those, and maybe one of those 1,000 people will become a fan because they really connect with your music and they connect with your message at a deeper level. So this is what is termed like the fan journey, that you're taking, a whole subset of people, and then, you're creating relationships at deeper levels along the journey, until a place where you find somebody who you have a really good connection with, you engage with them a lot, they engage with you, and every single, they become like a real engaged fan. So initially, when you're putting advertising out there, that's the process, is you're throwing a net into a very, very big ocean, and you might get very, very little results. But the more you keep on throwing that net out there, and picking up like that awareness and getting those engagements, one you're training the Facebook algorithm to understand, okay, so out of the 1,000 people that you, like when you start off your Facebook page, like the 1,000 of people that you put the advert out to, maybe only 10 people responded. Like, and then Facebook starts to learn, okay, out of those 1,000 people, the 10 people that responded, what is in common? What type of person is that? And so, the algorithm starts to learn like who responds to your music. And in the process of continually feeding that algorithm, it gets cleverer and cleverer and more accurate and more accurate. So initially, when you start to advertise, you might find that your advert doesn't have that much traction. Just because the algorithm hasn't really learned like what it is that your particular fan is, what type of person your fan is. And so you continue in this process of optimizing your advertising to find your particular people, and the more you feed it, the better it'll get. So like, to get one like on your page, it might cost you initially like £1. And then as time goes on, that price will decrease until maybe it costs you 10 cents or 20 cents to get a like or to get an engagement. Because as time goes on, you get, the algorithm learns like who is it that likes Tallulah. The people that like Tallulah also like yoga. They also like, this, they also like that. And they'll get quite specific around that. And then you'll be able to send, instead of sending like advertising to this a sea of unknown people, over time, then you're sending advertising to that specific group. So you might send an advert to 1,000 people who've never heard of you, and you might get 10 engagements. But if you sent an advert to 1,000 people that are engaged with you, you're going to get like 500 engagements. So that's the process of finding your fans and finding your community within that process, training the algorithm, always optimizing the algorithm to get to know, your business and your audience. So initially, like when you're putting out advertising, it might seem like it's a waste of money. But in some ways you have to go through that. And in another way, it's like feeding the beast. But Facebook is a very, very powerful advertising platform, in that they gather all sorts of information and every type of information about every single person. And you can take advantage of that, because you can get really, really specific about your person and who would be interested in your music. So that'll grow over time. And then as you release music onto Spotify, you can use that data also to target advertising.
Yeah.
To find more people. Like Spotify will know, okay, the people that like your music, they all have this in common. They all like Deva Premal, or they all like, Nessie Gomes, or they all like, whoever it is.
Yeah.
And so when you do advertising on Spotify will, instead of searching for people that like, whoever, they'll search for people that have more in common to what your other followers are like.
So you can do advertising on Spotify?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, you can do specific advertising on Spotify. Like I'm running a campaign for Moshe Halperin, which is like it's an exposure on Spotify campaign. And so it's costing about 20p per follower at the moment. And that's an ongoing campaign every day. We spend like £2 or £3. And it goes out and finds, puts his music in front of people and finds people, and then he gets, so many followers per day.
Wow.
Based on the amount of money that he invests in it.
Wow. And okay, it's interesting. God, it just feels like a bit of a bottomless pit, to be honest.
Well, it is in some respects. It is in some respects. So, the way you look at this process is that, there's a lot of things that you can do that's just organic. You can build an audience like completely organically. And what that requires, just like you found out with your previous releases, it takes a lot of time and a lot of effort in this business to get anywhere. But in the process of creating your previous releases, like I know you've gone through this this process of changing your music to almost like a different audience. But
part that feels a little bit precarious.
Hang on, Tallulah, it's cut out. It's just the reception's just gone down a bit. Hang on a sec.
I'm still here.
Let's just see. Okay, try now.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, that's better. Could you say that again?
You were saying that my music, because I've transitioned from one audience to another.
Yeah.
That's what you were in the flow.
Yeah, so I was just saying that over that time, you've had quite an extensive career. The process of really, creating a fan base would be that every single time you do a release, you expose your music to more people, and therefore you grow a fan base, so that by the time you're 10 or 15 years into your career, you've got a group of people that know your music, that love your music and follow you and support you. And, in that process, that's why I always focus people, and I ask people to really focus on getting people's email addresses, because all the other sort of platforms are not really owned by you, and they could change at any time, or they might shut down your account for one of whatever reason. So, you're building this business, and your business is based on your list. So your list is something that you control, and it's a direct relationship that you have with a group of people. and super important to keep that, to keep building that list, so that over the time, as you build your audience, your fan base, you create this community of people that support you. And when you release a track, you release it to a bigger group of people, a bigger audience. And I think what you're finding possibly is that you're experiencing an experience where I don't know, either you're on this new platform, so you're starting in some respects from a new place, or because you've made a transition from a different style of music, you have to recreate a whole new fan base.
So kind of, I feel like because it's been happening quite slowly over the past few years, and I feel really uncomfortable with that word, have transitioned. Some of them have transitioned with me because they've got older, they've got so things have shifted. So there, some people haven't and some people have. But I think the biggest shift is actually just the digitalization of everything, and just the fact that especially last couple of years, live touring and hasn't been possible. So I feel like it's both of those things that have impacted it.
Yeah, what was the first thing? We just cut out there slightly. What was the first thing besides the touring? So
the first thing is the fact that because some of the people that are followers of mine, followers of my music, have been around for quite a long time.
Yeah.
Some of them, they've also got older and their lives have also changed. So some of them have transitioned with me.
Yeah.
And some of them haven't. Yeah. And it was interesting when I did the concert a couple of weeks last week. I can't remember. Your people online, which was really lovely, and it was a total cross section of people who come to my workshops and people who have been buying my music for, have been crowdfunders the whole way through. We were talking about the fact that normally if someone had been doing something for 10 or 15 years, they'd have quite a solid fan base that would have journeyed with them.
Yeah.
And I think the problem is that not all of my fan base has continued on with me. Yeah. And it's also been one of the hardest times as a musician, and everything has moved online. Online. So it's, intrinsically, if you come from a background of vinyl and that sort of style, that kind of framework of releasing music, and it's all about touring, and it's all about, then it's definitely been a challenging time. But then you look at big artists who have changed tact, and I guess there comes a point where you're a big enough artist that even if you lose 15 or 20 or 30% of your fans, you still got a big enough groundswell to be able to sustain until the new people come in, I guess.
Yeah. And how do you communicate with your fan base?
I have a newsletter, but basically for me it's Instagram. I chat to people and answer messages every day, private messages, and try and be as active as I can on there. And that, I feel like Instagram is the most current following for me because it's the newest profile. And in actual fact, it's slightly been the other way around for Instagram, because on Instagram I've been a practitioner and facilitator. Yeah. And then it's been slowly trying to bring in the more musical side of it without jarring there. So it's which has been interesting. Yeah.
Let's see. So you're thinking back before before you started the course that we did.
Yeah.
How do you feel? What has changed about how you feel about the process of releasing music?
I feel like I have a very clear timeline of actions, and I can just kind of get everything prepared, and then it's just like boom, 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 boom. And so suddenly I can spend an hour and a half and have a lot more impact on what I'm doing rather than spending all day scattergunning. So I actually feel like I've worked less during this release, but I've achieved more.
That's good. That's good.
Yeah, so that feels really good. Like I've kind of, I've only been doing maybe 2 hours maximum specifically on the on any each day, or just even on like the last 4 or 5 days, because everything was organized.
Yeah,
I could just like upload it, boom, 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 boom. So that feels really good. And so now I'm just I've just uploaded my next release, so the Gayatri Mantra, and that'll be on the 11th of June. So I'm now just about to go through the process that I did with the Heart Sutra and just get everything kind of all organized and ready for that. And I've probably got another, I reckon, like content wise for the Heart Sutra, I've got 2 more live videos to do. And then I'm doing this Bristol Airwaves Festival this weekend. So I feel like by next Monday, I will have probably like milked all the content I can for the Heart Sutra.
Yeah. Great.
So yeah, and then I'll just start kind of, getting ready for the next one.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
And what would you say to a musician who's like stuck in the process or hasn't yet started music releasing?
Then it's easy to get overwhelmed, but just start with one step at a time. And a lot of the things that are overwhelming might not be relevant to you at that stage in your career. So I would say just focus on, if you're just at that first stage of getting some really great songs. And often, how we used to do it was that you'd write a lot of songs and then you take them on the road and you play them out, and you can see which are the ones that an audience really responds to. And the more you play them out, the more you tweak the arrangement. So if you've got a bunch of songs, then play them, just keep playing them, play them online, and you'll get a sense. If you're doing kind of Zoom gigs, you'll get a sense on which of the songs that get the most response, and then start recording. Keep it simple. Just get don't spend shitloads of money. Just do a very simple recording of the songs as a demo, so that you've got that kind of template, and then find someone to help produce them. But before you go into that stage of production, I would say get clear, or begin to get clear, what you want your record to sound like. So I would really support people to find your own sound. Don't just try and be another, this person or that person. You're an individual, we're all individuals. So but in the same breath, we're going to be inspired by the music that we've heard or the experiences that we've had. So it's great to kind of take that on board, but really be your own artist. Don't try and be a replica of somebody else. That would be my thing. Personally.
Very good advice. Very good. Very good.
Yeah.
And what advice would you give to others who are considering the coaching program?
That what advice? Well, do it.
Just do it.
Just do it. I mean, there's going to be a lot of content that, as I said, isn't necessarily going to be relevant in that moment, and when we did it, there was, there's a whole spectrum of experience in our group, and there's people who are just at the beginning, and then there's people, some of us have been doing it for years and years and years, and there was kind of conversations that are relevant to some and not others, but at that point, but it's not to say that those conversations aren't going to be relevant at some point. So I'd say, as you're going through, I think what we were talking about the other day, like you're kind of looking at how you reframe the actual course and that kind of step-by-step process. So there is that, like there is such a kind of practical, okay, day one you do this, day 2 you do that, so just follow that framework, and then all the other things that kind of spiral off that, you can go deeper in the course. So if you want to learn more about Facebook algorithms, then go on to the Facebook algorithm module. If you want to learn more about licensing, then good luck. But go into the please send me a memo, let me know. Then go into that PCRS, MPS, all those little initial things. But what I found is that, like, now I can kind of put my toe back in again and be like, okay, what was that thing? Like, I want to know some info about that. And it's like, oh, okay, where's that in the course? Oh, that's there,
Handy, that, isn't it?
It's really handy. Yeah, really handy. And I think if you've got like that timeline actually with the course itself, will make it much easier for participants, because one of the things was that, like, not everybody was able to kind of go through the modules, so often questions would come up that you've already answered in a module that they just haven't got to yet, whereas someone else might have already done that module. So it's this kind of like repetition for some, and yeah, so that's the timeline thing, I think would be great.
What was your favorite part of the Songway coaching program?
The group. I really enjoyed our group. I really enjoyed I really enjoyed the support and the community, and it's a very, like, the music industry that I grew up in, that, when I was starting out, it was you'd be pitching to radio or to press, and they would be like, okay, we've got 5 spots for a female artist. So there was this kind of constant competition against other artists, because there was such a small space for women in music. And in London, when I first was working there was just this, it was just a really difficult culture, because you were just intrinsically pitched up against each other. And I just feel like there wasn't this, it was kind of like slightly unspoken thing, but there wasn't this level of support. Whereas this is a very different culture, and things have changed dramatically as well. But just to have, for me, like the female support of other female artists, and being able to support other female artists, just feels like a really beautiful experience that's not part of a kind of patriarchal system that I've spent years being squashed by as a female artist.
Thanks.
I could really rant about that, but I'm not going to.
Well, that's what makes this culture a bit different, isn't it? This community that we're involved in. Completely different.
Yeah.
So would you? Sorry.
Well, the one other thing that was just really, for me personally, was that you don't have any idea how much experience you have until you're brought into some of these conversations. And so for me, there was just like this moment of like, oh my God, I have a lot of experience and I can really help other people. And, when you talked about the whole mentoring thing, it was like, God, yeah, that's something that I'd love to do, just because I've spent 20 years in this industry.
Yeah.
So I've got experience, although things have changed so dramatically, but there are still some intrinsically kind of things that are the same. So I guess for me, within myself, that brought a really lovely kind of bit of nourishment and kind of confidence building, you know, because it's not something that I've ever really had that mirroring or witnessing for. Never really known how much I knew or how much experience I had, because I've been a solo artist.
Yeah.
Running a label and a booking agency and just kind of, you know, being a bit of a mule.
Well, you've got a lot of experience. You've been there. You've done way more than a lot of artists.
But I've also like fucked up a lot, and I've kind of been pushed to my like I've made dreadful decisions through lack of experience, and I've made decisions. Oh my God, when I look back now, I just like, oh my God, that was such a bad decision. But I had no idea that was a bad decision. Just thought that was the right thing to do at the time. So yeah.
Well, you can use all that experience now
Mm.
and share it with the other musicians in the community. It's very valuable.
Yeah. I was interested in having a conversation with a friend of mine the other day, and she's about to release an album, and you can see exactly where she's at from her level of resort, like her exhaustion and the kind of desire to just like put it out and just be like, you know, and just that kind of thing of just know, like the experience now of actually what happens if you just do that. It's just like dead in the water.
Well, that's the thing. It's such a waste, isn't it? Because you spend so much time and effort, you know, first of all, to even receive the song or write the song. It's such a process. And then the process of recording it, it's so intensive and so much effort and resources. And then you just put it out there, and you know, it's like almost like you're throwing it away, because you're putting it out into a sea of music and content.
Yeah.
That people are so, you know, overwhelmed by content already. Well, not overwhelmed, but just so inundated. People have so many different options. Unless you give it, you know, the attention it deserves, it's just not going to go anywhere, because there's just too much competition out there.
And I think that was the thing that has shifted with me in this, and we were talking about this a bit yesterday, is that because we've got so much content that we're just farming out, the level of attachment to each piece of content it's just a piece of content. So that's, it's just like, okay, I'm doing this, and then tomorrow I'll do that, and like each bit is just another bit of sharing, rather than, like, as you said, we're talking about how you spend all this money on this one music video, and there's all this pressure on this one music video, and then nothing happens. And so just that thing of, you know, just keep creating, keep drip feeding, and one little you know, that I did a post which was like the most random thing. And it was for something totally, it was like for a qigong class, but I was like, oh my God, I've got a qigong class tomorrow, I need to promote it. And I had this ridiculous video of me in a gold catsuit jumping up and down, totally random, made no sense, but like I just put it on my Instagram feed. It was like 2-second loop. I was just like, I love qigong, this is why I love qigong, come and do a qigong class. And it was like this kind of panicked, like, oh, I should just do something. Took like 2 seconds and had thousands and thousands of views of people going, I love this is so great, I love qigong. And it was like, and other posts I'd spent ages being like, this is why qigong's really good for you, and you know, and like 5 people like it. It's just, you know,
just shows you the random nature of it, isn't it? It's like you don't really know. And sometimes the most like innocent sort of just expression can just go so much further than when you're really trying to make something happen with a post, or you're putting loads of effort in. I think it's more about the just getting it out there and not worrying too much about if it's perfect or not.
I completely agree. Yeah, I completely agree. Yeah.
So how would you describe the One Song Away challenge if you were explaining it to a friend?
The One Song Away challenge,
or the program, the coaching program?
I would say it's a really accessible framework that gives you a great timeline for releasing music in a way that is inspiring. And I had a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it. It's been really playful and resourcing and inspiring. And, you know, given that at the start of the program, I had nothing that I thought I was going to release. I was just kind of doing it because I was interested. To now suddenly I've kind of got like, oh my God, I can release it. I'll just release this album because it's there. And yeah. And also it's not expensive. The course is not expensive, but actually the process of releasing the music is not expensive.
Yeah.
Because, you know, the difference between, I think I've spent $50 on this release, which was my budget. Yeah. And that was just because I've done some ads and I did the spot and I did the CD baby thing. But that's totally recouped itself, and everything has grown.
Yeah. So
that for me is like a no-brainer. And I didn't have to doing those 2 ads. Yeah. I didn't think I really needed to do those. So if you want a framework to release your music on that's really straightforward, inexpensive, and inspiring, and do the course.
There you go. Tallulah has said, do the course. Well, Tallulah, it's been lovely to talk to you.
Yeah, Neela.
And I'm so glad you got value out of the course, and thank you so much for your feedback. And I'm so glad that the release went really well, and that somehow we were a part of that. You know, we had a positive impact on you and, you know, the community, and you've been a positive, you know, role model for other members of the community. So thanks for your contribution. And we look forward to knowing or being part of your next release and seeing your career grow and your ability to reach more of your fans and for your music to serve more people and bring more healing and more vibrancy and frequency and consciousness to the planet. And that's what it's all about. We're all here to help the healing of the planet and give people another option, place where people can go, where they can hear music that is just inspiring and deeper and connecting and brings a deeper vibration, a deeper sense, a deeper connection. And your music definitely does that. So thank you so much for sharing your music with the world. It's so beautiful.
You're welcome. Thank you. Yeah, it feels exciting.
Yeah, I'm excited to hear your upcoming music. I know your Heart Sutra is like a very powerful track, and I can't wait to listen to it in a gathering. It's so deep, it's so powerful. I'm sure it's gonna be the catalyst for many beautiful for people. So thank you for sharing it.
Yeah, thank you. And it's like, feels so exciting doing the particular collaboration with Ollie as well with those videos. And we did last night. Do you know who you follow George Monbiot? George Monbiot? I don't know how you say his name.
No.
Well, there was this talk on he gave a talk on dying for consumption. Dying for consumerism. And he's just a big environmentalist talking about how we're all consumerist and, you know, just having a really good rant against all the mainframe. Basically, he's a Guardian journalist. I think he's a Guardian journalist or Telegraph journalist. But it was really amazing to be invited to be part of that. And they streamed one of mine and Ollie's videos halfway through, which was really fantastic to
wow.
Yeah, it was great to kind of, feels like I feel really excited by the fact that, we can have these voices as artists to be kind of conduits for change. We can be activists, and we can, it's what you talked about right at the beginning of the course. It's like, what are we here to do on this planet with this music? And it's to, bring healing and raise consciousness, and, just to do all these things that we've been talking about. And it just feels really exciting to be actually part of that conversation, to be creating music that actually is in that framework, in that field.
Absolutely.